Hey everybody, I'm here to present with you my top 5 favorite episodes of Love, Death, and Robots, which is a new Netflix original series. It's basically an anthology series. For guys that don't, or for you guys that don't know what an anthology series is, an anthology series is essentially just a like series of self-contained short episodes that don't really follow a greater narrative, and that sometimes have different themes. Sometimes anthology shows try to stay within a certain theme. This one does kind of loosely stay in certain themes. It's most of the or most every episode usually has some kind of science fiction element to it, or like fantasy element to it. So it's not like just normal stories that are rooted in realism. Almost everything has some kind of crazy, fantastical element to it. And most of the time it's sci-fi. They don't really go into the supernatural too much. There are a couple that have some supernatural elements. Every episode is also animated except for one that has live action, but there is animation in the episode, like a mixture of animation and live action. But every single other episode is completely animated, and the animation style is different for each episode. Sometimes it's 2D, sometimes it's 3D, sometimes it's much more stylized. Sometimes it's more cartoony, sometimes it's more hyper realism. It just depends on what episode you're watching. And because of the nature of these episodes being self-contained stories, I was going to do a review, but I figured that a top 5 would be pretty much the same thing, because I'm going to be talking about each episode and then like talking about why I like those episodes, or like of my top 5 episodes. So it pretty much ends up being a review, so to speak. Overall, I did really enjoy this. I thought that almost every episode was really good. There's only like maybe 2 I don't like. And with 18 episodes in total, that's actually pretty good for an anthology series. For me, not for only 2 episodes to be weak, in my personal opinion, anyway. So starting off the list at number 5 is Fish Night, which is, I believe, I'm not sure actually. Oh, it's episode 12. So this is a really good one. I enjoy this one. It's got a much more simplified story. There's not a whole lot of substance in this one. The story is very straightforward. It's basically these 2 guys. Oh, by the way, I'm going to be giving spoilers out. I'm just going to throw that out now. So if you don't want spoilers for the episodes, I'll try not to get too much into it, but I will be spoiling most of what goes on in these episodes. This one focuses on 2 guys. I think they're supposed to be traveling salesmen, and one's older, one's younger, and they're going through the desert, and they run out of gas, and they get stuck on the side of the road. Well, they have a pretty interesting conversation for a while, basically talking about how the whole salesman thing is kind of like dying out. They're a dying breed, and the younger guy's like, well, we can still do it, like you just gotta have the right attitude. It's just some interesting dialogue here. The older guy starts talking about how like he remembers hearing stories about when he was a kid, how these kind of deserts like this used to be a giant ocean, and then they got washed out, and sometimes you can still see the ghosts of the fish and the wildlife, of the ocean. And then all of a sudden, we start seeing the ghosts of the wildlife and the fishery and stuff. And it's really cool. The visuals are really amazing, very vibrant colors. This one is more of a visual spectacle with a little bit of interesting dialogue in the middle. But this is one of the few. This is one of the few ones that's not overly grotesque, because there's a lot of very mature themes in this show. Lots of sexuality, lots of nudity, male nudity, everything. I mean, there's lots of really grotesque scenes. And this one does have a little bit of like violence and darkness to it, but it's much more somber and like positive than most of the other ones. So at number 4 we have Suits, which I believe is episode 4. This is a really fun episode. This is basically a story of some farmers, and they're trying to do their livelihood and stuff. And these interdimensional creatures keep popping up. They look kind of like aliens, like the classic alien movie aliens. They're very insect-like, and they keep coming through these breaches, killing the cattle and stuff. And so the farmers have to get in these big mech suits they've made. They're very homemade style. It has a very like you can see like where it's like everyday objects were used to make the mechs and stuff, and they just feel very like redneck mechs. And they use these mechs to fight off the aliens, but as they're fighting them off, like more and more breaches keep coming through, and they start getting overwhelmed. It's really interesting. This episode is only like 17 minutes long, but it does a really good job of introducing you to these characters, making you feel for these characters, and making you like worried about them as they get overwhelmed, and the stakes are rising very quickly. It's very epic in scale. There's some great action. The animation is pretty good. I didn't really like some of the people models, like human models, but the animation for the creatures and the mech suits is really good. And this one gets a lot of emotional resonance out of you in a very quick time. And I thought that was pretty cool for that. Plus, it's just really epic in scale, like I said. At number 3, we have Good Hunting, episode 8. This is this one is something truly interesting, and it's got a great animation style that's very kind of traditional 2D, very anime style kind of thing. So it starts off in Japan, I believe. I could be wrong, but I believe it's supposed to be Japan. And like the feudal age, like coming into the industrial age, kind of like in the middle there. And it focuses on a spirit hunter and his son that are going out, staking out, trying to kill this spirit. Which in this story, the spirits are like these fox shape-shifting women that like use their abilities to allure men and like trap their souls, kind of like a siren type thing. And it's pretty interesting because when the main character is a kid, he befriends the daughter of the spirit they're hunting, and over the years they become friends, and they put aside their differences and all this. And at the beginning of this episode, everything is very magical. It's very like there's magic in the story. There's everybody's fighting with swords, and it's very traditionalized. Well, as the episode goes on, we get into a more industrialized. They move to China, and it becomes a more industrialized story, and during the colonization and all that. But then it like goes into an alternate history where it's more like steampunky. I really just enjoyed the themes in this one because there's a lot of good themes. Like it's like the old versus the new. Adapting to the world around you. Just like the kind of like corruption that technology can bring to the world, and all those kind of like classic themes are really represented well here. Plus, you have this very interesting story. It's not really it's never really a romance, but it's like this deep friendship that these two characters have, even though they met under like incredibly dark and depressing circumstances, and all this darkness happens around them, but they are able to kind of stay true to themselves and have this connection. It's really a beautiful story when you get to the end. Next up at number 2, we have Scourge of Souls, episode 5. Man, I love this one. This one is essentially a story of this archaeologist, his assistant, and a couple mercenaries that he's hired, which is kind of interesting because why would you ever hire mercenaries for your archaeological dig unless you just know that what you're going to unearth is probably going to kill you? Then you probably shouldn't do it. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So this is an episode. This is basically about this archaeologist and his group, and they're trying to dig up the remains of something, and I don't know if they ever actually knew what they were looking for specifically, but what they find is Dracula. And Dracula is basically this big primal, like blackish monster thing. He's very much a beast. He doesn't even talk or anything. He's just a savage, monstrous beast, incredibly brutal. And it's really interesting. I really like. There's a lot of good dark humor in this one, like especially from the main mercenary guy here in the picture. He's very funny. He's got a lot of good one-liners, and he's just a really fun character that I really enjoyed. Kind of cliche, but really fun. This one's really enjoyable. It's very, very high pace, or like high, speed, really hyperkinetic with the action and stuff. I really like the way they kind of reimagined Dracula for this one, and like a lot of the fighting is good. And there's even this whole little other thing that's kind of funny with cats. I won't get into it too much, but the only thing that really kind of keeps this one from being number one for me is that there is this one moment of like extreme brutality and gruesomeness, which was just too much. It kind of put me from this episode. I was able to get back in, but it was just something that was like so nasty to look at. I was like, coming in at number 1 is episode 10, Shapeshifters, which if you guys have actually watched the show, you would probably know that this is probably an easy guess, because this one definitely stands out among the others. I've watched a lot of reviews and like in comments from people, and everybody seems to really enjoy this one. Like, this seems to be a very popular number 1 for people, and it deserves it. It's a great episode, great story. You could totally elaborate this into a movie if you wanted to. I feel like somebody should do that. So basically, this is a like wartime story set in kind of like a present day era. Like fighting against terrorism, war on terrorism, and But the thing that makes it special is that two of the soldiers in this U.S. Army, like, squad or whatever, they're werewolves, and everybody knows about werewolves apparently in this world. And these two werewolf friends have joined the military. They've enlisted. They want to fight for their country, even though everybody seems to hate them, and there's like this whole like racism undertone that goes throughout the episode. Even like the fellow soldiers are just like making jokes and like being bullies to these guys, even though they're A, way more superior in physical ability than the normal humans, and B, they're fighting with them. They're like their secret weapon. I just never understood that in movies and stuff. But it's a really interesting story. Basically, the Taliban have some werewolves on their side, so like the U.S. military is like responding with their own little group of werewolves, and it's a really cool story. It's got some really amazing, brutal action. There's this amazing werewolf on werewolf fight that is just so brutal, and it's just really entertaining. And I've probably one of the most brutal fights I've seen. It works well because it really channels what like two big animals like this, how they would fight. It's like just great. Also, the transformation scenes are just really well done. Like you can see here, the guy is pulling off his human skin to reveal his werewolf side, and it just looks great with the way the animation style works. There's some good wartime stuff in here too, especially at the beginning with the main character like using his werewolf like kind of super sight and stuff to find snipers and stuff. Really kind of cool. Yeah, I really enjoy this one. It's got good dialogue. It's got a good kind of story and theme and meshes and some great action, and the visuals are great. All right, so there you go. That's my review slash top 5 list for Love, Death, and Robots. I really enjoyed this series overall. I didn't think I was gonna like it, and I really just watched it on a whim because I had a friend tell me that he was enjoying it. So I just kind of and plus I do like short watches, something that you can get in and get out pretty quick. So this is perfect for that kind of thing. So let me know in the comments, guys, what your favorite episodes were, and if you even like the show. And I'll see you guys later. And thank you for watching. As always, really appreciate it.